unfortunately Adam can't join us, so it's my first time out hosting and Joe's first time out producing. Clearly, we're off to a good start. So yeah, we're going to talk some video game news. And the first thing on the slate, if you follow the Etch Play Weekly Roundup, or if you just can keep track of dates, you will know that this year is the 20th anniversary of or the 20th year since the original Xbox was first shown to the world. And as part of that celebration, Bloomberg put out a really long article from the article of Xbox, and there was something interesting in there, which I don't know if you saw, Joe. There was details of a meeting that happened between Xbox and Nintendo in the year 2000.
I did hear about this. It was this about the potential buyout of Nintendo from Microsoft.
Yes, so Microsoft were looking to get into this arena, and firstly they approached EA. They were trying to acquire EA, and EA were like not interested. So like, okay, fine. And then in the article they said about the suggestion was to approach Nintendo with kind of the proposition that Nintendo, hey, you're really strong on games front, but and this isn't me saying it, I love Nintendo, but the answer's like they said, but like your hardware sucks in comparison to Sony's, so why don't we match up? We'll do the hardware, you can do the games. And Nintendo weren't interested. They didn't want to get involved with that. And then there was also conversations about pitching to work together. And again, Nintendo weren't interested. But that could have changed the gaming scene hugely if that happened. We wouldn't have seen maybe things like the Switch and the Nintendo Wii and stuff like that. And yeah. that would have been interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think a world without Xbox now, because Xbox has been around for so long. It's like I'm not going to put a date on it because I'll get it wrong. But a world without Xbox nowadays, the landscape would be very, very different. Especially like even without the Xbox platform, not just the hardware, but things like the concept of Game Pass probably wouldn't exist.
Yeah, and it's funny that there's such two differently distinct like consoles as well. Like the Nintendo consoles are nothing like the Xbox consoles, and probably attracts very different players. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see where that has gone. Let's say we don't know. It's possibly for the best that didn't happen, but interesting nonetheless to hear that those conversations were being had. Also this week, it feels like we talk about this game most weeks, but CD Projekt Red have put out a video discussing the slightly turbulent launch of Cyberpunk 2077. And really the video was put out to try and ease fans into that things would get better and apologize and kind of take blame for what happened. But it hasn't gone down great. The reception to that has kind of been like, oh, it feels like just a lot of excuses, and it's kind of whitewashing and glossing over what some of the real issues are by focusing on visual elements. And there's still issues that people are having on PC that they're complaining about. So it's not gone down great. For me, it's a really tough position that CD Projekt Red have found themselves in, and it's hard to know what the right thing to do is. You could say nothing and keep working away, and then people are like, why aren't you saying anything? Or you can come out and do a video like this and say something, and then people are never going to be happy with what you
they'll always say, hey, that's cool, but you need to do more than just, it's not just visual stuff that people think is wrong. It's also apparently some very glaring gameplay bugs from what I've read.
I've not played it. Only seen what's happening in the chat online, and yeah, I think unfortunately they've just found themselves between a rock and a hard place. But I'm sure everyone's working really hard over there, and they say this in the video and echoes. And it's like, don't take personal aims at people there. Everyone's working really hard and trying their best, and appreciate that it's not been a good launch, but ultimately the game will get there. It's happened before. It will happen again. Try and bear with them, and in the long run, it will be fine. As rocky and as bad and as rightly so people are feeling bad about it right now, I'm sure it will get better.
Yeah, as bad as it might be now. If you take Witcher 3, their last release, that had a lot of post-launch support, so I'm sure they will turn it around. It's things just take time.
Yeah. Moving on in slightly, well, not slightly, in very sad news, Jonas Nilbauer has died, age 39. If you don't know who Jonas is, he was a big player in legitimizing classic Tetris and Tetris as an esport. Tetris, as the Etch Play team knows, and sick of me banging on about, I love Tetris, and especially classic Tetris, the way it should be played. He was a big player in that and getting it legitimized. He was the classic Tetris world champion 7 times since 2010. So that's a really, really sad loss to the gaming community, and thoughts go out to his family and friends. So I just wanted to share that, but yeah, really, really sad news. Also, in the world of games, unfortunately, the opening of Super Nintendo World in Japan, which is in Universal Studios over there, has been delayed rather unshockingly. I can't imagine why that's happened. So it was originally slated to open on the 4th of February, but Osaka, where the park is, has been put in a state of emergency with the COVID situation. So that has now been put on the back burner, but it looks really cool. I wish one was opening here that we could go to, because I think it looks really cool. I'm a big Nintendo and Mario fan, so
Yeah. Sadly, it's no surprise, but hopefully sooner rather than later, when it's safe to do so, will open, and we will start a GoFundMe to get you there.
we will. I think all expenses paid trip by Etch Play. I think I'm sure Dan can sort that out. That's definitely a business expense, I think.
Yeah.
In exciting news, Lucas Games is now a thing again. So a little bit of history behind that. Lucas Games was a thing, and then it was rebranded to Lucasfilm Arts or LucasArts in the 1990s, and then it went away in 2012 when Disney acquired Lucasfilm. But this week it's back, and it has been brought back with a rather exciting announce that there is a new Indiana Jones game coming from Machine Games, the studio that did Wolfenstein, and it's been published by Bethesda, which in itself is an interesting discussion. So we'll come back to that. But first, Lucasfilm Games. Joe, how do you feel about that?
Good. Lucasfilm Games have a lot of IP that isn't just Star Wars and isn't just Indiana Jones. A big one, if anyone's a fan of 90s adventure games, was Secret of Monkey Island. That was a big one. Yeah, so it's good to see that they're back. They're licensing out some IPs that haven't been touched in a long time. Indiana Jones, obviously, a big name that hasn't seen a game in a very long time that I can remember, at least. So
Yeah, I can't remember the last time there was an Indiana Jones game. So yeah, we haven't seen a lot about the Indiana Jones game. It was a very short video, just with a bit of a tease. So if you're a fan of the franchise, then yeah, keep an eye out that. I'm sure there'll be some more details coming soon. And yeah, being published by Bethesda. So we won't go too deep into this because we're going to talk about it later on in the show. There's a lot of questions going around now with Bethesda being published. Obviously, Microsoft bought ZeniMax very recently, who own Bethesda, and is this game now going to be a Microsoft exclusive? Is this only going to be able to get on PC through Microsoft and on Xboxes, or is PlayStation going to get it? So that remains to be seen. That was the big question when Microsoft bought ZeniMax and by proxy Bethesda, as are those titles all going to move across to on the Xbox and future titles? So this could be the first litmus test as to how they want to do that and how it's going to be going forward. So it'll definitely be interesting to see.
personally, I don't think it's going to be an exclusive. When they made it, they were like, we just want people to be able to play games and the best games they can be. So hopefully, it sounds like they just want as many people playing the games as possible. But it's early days, so
yeah, we'll see what happens. That kind of really could set the tone for what happens with, and we'll talk about it later, with game exclusivity on specific consoles. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Keeping on the Lucasfilm and Star Wars theme, a new Star Wars game has been announced with very little details. But the big news with this, not only that there's a Star Wars game coming, is that it is not going to be developed by EA. This is being done by Massive Entertainment, who did The Division. And this is the first time in about 8 years that a Star Wars game is going to be coming out that has not been done by EA.
yeah. I wouldn't say I'm excited to see someone's, exclusivity contract end, but it's exciting to see what other developers can do with an IP. Obviously, EA did have a good run with the Battlefront series, and I can't remember the name of the most recent RPG one they had. That's fine. Someone will say it in the chat, and we can come back to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm sure Dan will know that.
Yeah,
He's a big Star Wars
Dan's
games
probably
fan.
played it for sure. Yeah, but they were all kind of well received. There was a bit of controversy about the loot box stuff, but they all fall in order. Thank you, Dan. They were all, you know, good games, but it's not to see someone else have their own spin, their own artistic flair on it. So
Yeah. And this doesn't mean the end for Star Wars and EA. I've got a quote here from Sean Shoptow, who is the Senior Vice President of Global Games and Interest Experiences at Disney. And he said, EA has been and will continue to be a very strategic and important partner for us now and going forward. But we did feel like there's room for others, which is great. As you said, it'd be fantastic to see someone else's take on the franchise and see where that goes. So as one game is just being announced as coming in, one game feels like it's kind of winding down. This week, the Killzone website, I never played Killzone, I don't know whether you played it, was dubbed as a Halo killer. That website has been shut down, it's been retired. And yeah, how do you feel about this? There's not been a new game since 2013, but people still are playing it. So
it was like on the PlayStation 2, it was kind of one of the early killer apps they had. I didn't have it myself, but a lot of my friends were big fans back in school, and I did get to play it a little bit. It was a fun game for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it Killzone 3, I think it was actually a PS4 launch title back in 2013, I think, or one of the Killzones was. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen. I was reading around it, and there's rumors that that they are working on more multiplayer aspects of the games. Maybe this isn't the end, but it's interesting to see what's going to happen with that, and about sunsetting games and winding them down when there are still active players, and how that continues to be supported. Obviously, we talk a lot about long life games, and I guess as a studio, you need to weigh up: are you getting enough from the title to justify keeping it alive and keeping supporting it as regularly and as actively as you once did, or are you better off moving to new titles? So we'll see if anything else comes from the franchise. It seems like it's very much seems like it's being wound down, and it's going to be going away, but obviously you still continue to play it. So yeah. And we have no game delay news this week, which is weird. Just kidding. Of course there is game delay news. Capcom's Pragmata has now been delayed. It was originally slated to come out in 2022, and it has been now pushed back to 2023. I don't know whether, I think maybe the Cyberpunk thing is having a knock-on effect. Whether they would have delayed it had this happened or not, but I feel like people are getting a lot more careful about it, that we don't want to have that happen to us, because also the Harry Potter game, Pete, is going to be devastated. Hogwarts Legacy has also been delayed. That was supposed to come out this year, and that has now said it's going to come out in 2022. Not a lot of details as to why. All that they've said in their announcement is that they want to give it the time that it needs, which again feels like it's coming back to the Cyberpunk thing.
I'm not too surprised, because I don't feel like we've actually seen too much of the game, and normally when you get to the release year, you've got a few more details, and I think we've had maybe one trailer and a reveal of the Harry Potter game. So I'd rather them keep it in the oven and get it, as good and polished as they can get. So.
Exactly. I think we've seen. I don't want to keep harping on it, but with Cyberpunk, that people wanted it and they were clamoring for it, and it was delayed, and people were like, where is it? Give me the game. So they gave everyone the game. Wasn't quite ready, and then that's worse. I'm of the same ilk as you. Yeah. I would rather it's held back and it's ready than it's rushed out to get it out. But yeah, whether it's just because things are bitten off more they can chew, they've want to add more to it, or obviously COVID has been a huge thing over the last 12 months and continues to be, and whether that's had a knock-on effect or whether it would have been delayed anyway, we don't know. But yeah, they're the two latest game delays, and tune in next week to the Etch Play live show where we'll tell you what's the new game that's going to be delayed, because I'm sure there will be another one. And yeah, just one more thing to close off the news. I don't know if you saw this, but Stadia. I got told off for saying it like that the other way. Stadia
Yep.
and GeForce Now coming to LG TVs as a built-in app, and that is expected to happen in the TV models coming out in the second half of this year. So that is a big step forward for cloud gaming. Everyone seems like they're clamoring to be the cloud gaming solution. It remains yet to see whether that is the way gaming will end up going. Feels like it is, but putting it on TVs, out of the box, is a huge step forward and makes it a lot more accessible.
Yeah, they're both pretty big platforms. I know Mobin has used GeForce Now a few times to play some Rocket League with the guys over lunch, and I have a few friends who've used Stadia now and again to at least give it a test to see, what's this new technology, and they were pretty impressed. So yeah, it's good to see it getting more. Mobin uses it every day. Okay, I thought he only used it once or twice. But yeah, it's good to see it getting a bit more wider adoption, to get it a bit more battle tested and actually I didn't want to say usable, because it's very usable already. Just change people's perceptions on the technology.
Yeah, once it becomes more mainstream and more out there, I think that will definitely help with the adoption. And I think Dan tried it for the first time with Adam just before Christmas. I think they actually streamed it, and he said how easy the setup to get going with Stadia was, and definitely a big step forward for cloud gaming. And I think it's going to be a big year for cloud gaming. So let's see what happens with obviously Stadia and GeForce Now are there, and Microsoft are working on their offering, and we'll see what happens. So
I have one more piece of surprise news for you that I didn't tell you about beforehand.
This wasn't in the run notes.
This happened 3 hours ago, so it didn't make it. But we're both big fans of the Nintendo 64.
Yes, we are.
And are you a Pokemon Snap fan?
I was a big Pokemon Snap fan. I was trying to find it on an emulator the other day because it popped into my head.
The new Pokemon Snap game got a release date today and a new trailer. 3-4 hours ago now. So April 20th, mark your calendars.
I will.
That's when we will be able to move over to new Pokemon Snap, which is its name, with the new and everything.
Nice. I will be checking out that trailer straight after the live show. Don't go anywhere. Watch it after the live show. Well, I thought the news was finished. I believe now the news is finished.
Now it's finished, yeah.
So thank you for joining me, Joe. We're going to throw to a pre-recorded segment of Adam playing Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, and me distracting him by talking constantly. Stick with us, check that out, and then me and Joe will be back to talk about console exclusivity.
Cool.
Hey, Adam Burt here, and I'm joined by Ben Joy. We're going to play some Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. This is by Playtonic Games. I have got the controller in my hand, and this is nothing like Banjo Kazooie, which is it's the game that inspired. Yooka-Laylee is a franchise heavily inspired by Banjo Kazooie, made by Playtonic. The first game was funded on Kickstarter, I believe, and this is now the second game in the series. And what you can see here is I play as Yooka-Laylee, the lizard with the bat. Am I right in thinking, Ben, that the lizard is Yooka and the bat is Laylee?
If I remember rightly, yes, I think that is the way.
I brought you on the show because you're the Yooka-Laylee fan. You don't even know who they are.
I only played the original again the other week, so I should know that. I mean, bearing in mind it's Banjo Kazooie and Banjo was on the ground. I'm pretty sure it's Yooka that's on the ground. Not that it's Banjo Kazooie. Not that it's Banjo Kazooie 3 or anything.
So this game has some interesting mechanics, which is why I thought we would play it. Essentially, when the game starts, you're introduced to Queen Phoebe, who is here. She has the Royal Bee Tallion. I've been prepared for bee puns because there's a lot of them in this video.
Nice.
And this is the Royal Stingdom, which is her land full of bees. Capital B is a bad guy. He's got the hive mind, which is a mind control device. The writers had a great time with this.
Yeah.
And basically he's got an impossible lair, which you can actually play at any time. So up here, I could go into this. That's the impossible lair, and the point is, it's a level that's so difficult you can only complete it if you can rescue the B-Tallion, because the B-Tallion fly around you like a shield, and each bee takes a single hit. So if I was to try that now, I would be completely destroyed. Instead, using this overworld, which you can kind of explore and find these hidden book portal things, we're going to go and rescue some bees. We're going to restore the B-Tallion, and yeah, and then we'll see how we go on.
Nice.
The overworld has some interesting kind of mechanics where you kind of have to almost puzzle-esque, I would say. Like, you have to find these levels. This is the beginning of the game, so this one's just sat there. But later on, there's bits where you have to, you know, change the environment a bit. Like, you have to divert some water, and then you can see something that was underwater before, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, the original game focused on puzzles as well. Like you could solve things, and then that would make the worlds bigger. So I guess they've carried on that theme here.
Yeah. So this is Chapter 1, Capital Causeway, and you'll see when we get into this, but the levels that you actually play through in this one, at least, which is slightly different to the first one, all the levels, once you delve into them, are two-dimensional, or 2.5-dimensional, you might say.
Yeah.
They have a kind of 3D look, but they definitely take place on a 2D plane. There we go. So I've got a roll mechanic to open doors and stuff, and the game's immediately frozen.
Yep. I was thinking that maybe that was just for me, but
no, we're back. We're back, and I can do a little tail whip.
yeah. So in the original game, you learn moves as you go. You don't have everything off the bat. I'm assuming that that's going to be similar in this game. You'll pick up more moves as you go.
Whoa, okay.
That's very fast moving.
There you go.
There you go. You do a twirl jump. Very nice.
RB to pick up and throw an object, eh?
I guess you can pick that up. Or not. Did you play much Banjo Kazooie back in the day?
No, not really. Never really been my thing.
Missed out.
That's why I brought you on today to tell me what's
Yeah, I was a big Banjo Kazooie fan. Me and my brother played it for just hours upon hours upon hours on the Nintendo 64, and then bought the arcade version on the Xbox. Played some Banjo Kazooie nuts and bolts. One game we never had Banjo Tooie actually, which was the actual follow-up to Banjo Kazooie.
Did you think that Yooka-Laylee scratches that Banjo Kazooie itch before you
It does, yeah. I mean, and it's not a slight at all, but for all intents and purposes, it to me it feels like Banjo Kazooie 3. It's very much a Banjo Kazooie themed game.
Oh.
The characters are similar, and like I said, that's by no means a slight. Creating a game that is like one of my favourite games of all time is definitely a compliment. So I think, and in the Kickstarter, I think they leaned very heavily on that it was going to be made by the creators of Banjo Kazooie. So clearly people got behind that, and they raised a ton of money to make the game, and it was successful, so they made another.
You might have seen there as I was running around, you can lose Laylee, the bat. She can basically, when you get hit the first time, she runs away. But you can get her back by catching her or by reaching one of those bells that'll bring her back to you.
So you're currently playing this on Game Pass, right?
Yep, this is available on Game Pass, I believe, both for console and PC. This is the PC version, but I'm playing with an Xbox controller. Hey, secrets.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a whirl on Game Pass on PC. I've got the original Yooka-Laylee on Switch, which I alluded to earlier, that I was playing the other week. Again, my brother got that for me. few years ago. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking that one out as well, especially if you were a fan of Banjo Kazooie. I think you'll definitely enjoy it. It's right up there with it. How are you finding the learning curve with this? It seems like you're going pretty okay so far.
It's pretty good. We've unlocked our first member of the Beetalion.
Nice.
I don't know how many bees there are, but I feel like there's like a lot of bees.
I feel like there'll be a lot. One of the things in the previous game is there is a lot to do. It doesn't feel like a lightweight game. Pick it up, do it in a few hours. I don't know whether that's just because I'm bad at games and it takes me a long time, but it definitely feels like they build the worlds out to be very, very extensive. And it was cool. We had a rocket jump a few years back, and we had Steve Malpass do a talk. It's a very popular video on our YouTube channel, and he was talking about level design and touching on some of the stuff he'd done in Banjo Tooie, and it's very in-depth stuff. So, and I don't think he worked on this game, but it's clear that kind of mentality of really rich world building and level design has been brought into these games, which just makes them so fun to play.
Yeah, and I think just from a game design point of view, I think it's really interesting mechanic that you can just the end of the game's right there. You can just play it right now. I mean, if you were really, really good at the game, you could beat this. I don't know if you could beat it the first time, but you could beat it pretty soon. Whereas most of us will obviously have to spend some time exploring and find more bees.
I'd probably spend like 300 hours finding all the bees, be as super powered as I can, and probably fail immediately anyway.
Oh, this bird's got something to say.
That's not Kazooie, is it?
Okay, so this kind of shows us some of the mechanics that you have. You can move crates around, which you can use to...
I guess you drop it in there to climb up?
Well, you can push it into that space, and I think you can climb up on it if you get high enough. I don't seem to be able to do that in a minute, but I'm sure I'll be able to at some point. Also got this over here. I don't know what that even is.
Can you move it?
No, there's no handle on it.
Okay.
And yeah, the open world has levers, switches, which change things, opens doors, etc. And yeah, this is Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair. Well worth checking out if you have Game Pass. Some interesting ideas and very solid platforming. If you like platformers, it's a very good one to try. Thanks very much for joining me, Ben, and we'll throw back to the studio and back to the live show. See you guys soon. Bye.
See ya.
And we're back. So, as we touched on earlier, this section of the show is going to be all about exclusive content in video games. We did kind of allude to whether or not the new Indiana Jones would be, and kind of what that means for the consumers, the people that manufacture the console, and the developers. So Ben, how do you feel about exclusive content?
Yeah, it's a funny one because I think, as you said, there's kind of three viewpoints on it, and I think everyone's viewpoint is going to be different. So there's the consumer's viewpoint of exclusive content, then there's the studio who's making the game, and then there's obviously the brand that sits up here, the Microsoft, the Sony, who purchase it to be exclusive. So I think if you're a consumer, then exclusive content can feel there's a bit of friction there. Like for example, if you're an Xbox player and there's a game coming out on PlayStation that you want to play, but you can only play it on PlayStation, it's like, well, I'm not going to swap just for that. But what it might do is if you're on the fence, it might make your decision easier. And it's, it really does come down to, like, with the consumers, it used to be like, I'm going to, you might buy a console because that's what all your friends are buying. It's like, oh, well, we can play online together on that. And now that cross-play is becoming, it's not massively widespread, but it's becoming more prevalent. And I think it's only the way that the industry will keep going. Like, there's less emphasis needed on that. Like, either hardware is fine. The essentially specs are about as good as each other. It's just personal preference. And if the games are crossplay, then it's fine. It doesn't matter. But if a game is exclusive, it can restrict you getting it, and it might, it means you can't get it. As a studio who's developing the game, in one aspect, that could be great if Sony's come to you and it's like, here's a truckload of money, we want your game exclusive, we want it on our console only. Great, that that can secure some future for the studio. It gives them more runway, and it it eases some pressure that they've got that money coming in, and they can focus on, they know they're going to get a big push from, say, a Sony or a Microsoft, whoever's got the exclusivity. But on the flip side of that is what it means is that you are only getting a push from one platform. Whereas if you have a game and you're across all of them, you can get pushed on all of them and you can reach more players. So your game sales in theory are going to be better. So it's weighing up that decision of, if someone comes to you for an exclusivity deal, are you confident enough that if you turn that down, you'll do better by pushing it everywhere? Or would you rather take the exclusivity deal? And exclusivity deals aren't always, indefinite. We often see, it seems like more on PC, if Epic Games might get, a year-long exclusivity and then Steam can get it. So it's not forever. And you've got to take it from, which is going to be better for you. And it's got to be that choice. It's not black and white. It's right for everyone. It's wrong for everyone. It really depends on the studio's position and what's going to be best for them. And then obviously from the like your Sonys and your Microsoft, whether they are going to be exclusive, it's kind of like, is that going to be enough to tip someone to buy my console rather than the other one? And I don't know how you think about it. It's like, maybe my head's wrong in it. When I think of exclusivity, like my immediate is, okay, Halo on Xbox and Mario on Nintendo. Whereas it feels like Sony always seems to have slightly more platform exclusive games, but they don't seem to have
there's no big mascot kind of character for them.
It's not like got the franchise, which is, this is, PlayStation is the console for this.
I think the closest they would have nowadays would probably be something like either God of War or I think the new Spider-Man is still an exclusive.
Yeah, yes, still an exclusive. I think the first game was, and Miles Morales is as an exclusive. But yeah, it's just when I was thinking about it, it's like, Halo, Xbox, Mario, Nintendo. Which exclusivity is not new. Back in the day, that was the norm. You wouldn't have many games crossing over.
Every system was so different to make games for that you had to kind of make that choice out the gate. What platform are we going to release on? Now I think they're all a lot more unified in how the games are made, thanks to things like Unreal. That it's more a business decision rather than a technical decision.
Yeah, and I think that it comes back to how this might be perceived negatively by having an exclusivity deal, is what you were saying about why we think that the Indiana Jones game is going to be not exclusive, because the comment about, we just want people to play games, we don't want to restrict people, we just want people playing and enjoying games. And it can be seen sometimes from a consumer's point of view, is that, okay, you don't want me to play this game because I'm not on that console. And it can stretch further than just the games. So there was a big thing like last year, I think it was last year, all the years are merging into one, when the Marvel game came out, and unless you were playing on a PlayStation, you couldn't have the Spider-Man character. So if you were playing on PC or if you were playing on Xbox, you didn't get that content. So you felt maybe shortchanged as an Xbox or PC player, that you weren't getting it, and it can rub people the wrong way. And I was reading people saying like, oh, well, maybe they could have countered it by giving, exclusive different characters to PC and Xbox, like a Black Panther character or something like that. But it kind of is at odds with we just want people to play games and have fun playing these games, to then be like, right, box them into their little silos. So it's a really tricky one, and I don't know what the answer is. But it feels like there is, as we say, it's kind of at odds with each other, that the cross-play is becoming such a big thing now, and then Exclusivity is also still a really big player in console launches and console games and launches. It's kind of like they're kind of fighting each other across the crossplay. Like, we don't care. Like, people just play games, pick the console that works for you, and then the exclusivity deal is like, no, if you want to play this game, you have to be on this console. Like, have you run into any issues where it's like, oh, I want to play this game, but I can't because I can't get it on the system that I use?
I bought a PlayStation 3 just to play Metal Gear Solid 4. So, yes.
So you're buying into what they want,
Yeah.
into the plan. So you're feeding into like, the top dog. You're betraying the consumer. But that's interesting that you did that, because I mean that is people can make that decision, like, oh, if people want it enough, they'll buy the console. Which, as we say, you can try and tip people over to make that decision, or you can rest on the fact, like, okay, people will buy this. Excuse me, people will buy this twice. And you see that happen sometimes with like some of the long life games. I mean, like a GTA, for example, it's gone through 360 to Xbox One. It's on PC, it's on the different generations of PlayStation, and there are people who will buy that game over and over and over again. So you're hitting the same person multiple times. So that can be a factor. What else did I have on this? So what did you think of the exclusives that were launched? Because I'm in the situation now with the next gen consoles coming out where I feel like if I'm going to buy one, and I'm very close, I want to buy an Xbox. I've always been an Xbox player. I had original Xbox 360. I skipped the one. I've always been Xbox, and I'm leaning towards Xbox. Kind of like, I do want to play the new Spider-Man game, and
I think that's
do
the
want to
thing.
play
This
Ratchet and Clank.
generation is like the 360, the PlayStation 2 era, the PlayStation 3 era were all, oh, my friend's got this console, I need that console. Now, like you said, it's more, okay, what software does this console have that makes it more in line with what I want, rather than, back in the day, it's like, well, if I want to play with my friends, I have to get this one. So it has changed quite a bit, I think. I don't know what I would go for nowadays. Growing up, I was always PlayStation, 100%. But just because I'm a PC gamer now and Game Pass is a thing, I might go to Xbox if I was to get one. I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, it's interesting with that as well, because it feels like, as I say, I think it's purely a perception thing. It always feels like Sony has more exclusive titles, and if you're an exclusive title on Sony, you're a bit more restricted as the consumer. Whereas if you are in the Microsoft ecosystem now, I think every game, or if not most of them, are geared up. If you obviously need a PC that's spec'd enough. If you've got a PC that's high enough spec, you can play the game on either an Xbox or a PC. So it's less restrictive. So even though it could be an exclusive, it's not tied to a specific piece of hardware. You're in
it's tied to their platform, and they got that buy one, just play anywhere across the last gen system, this gen, and PC as well. So they're very open to just having people play their games, it feels like.
Yeah. So that again, with me and my dilemma of PlayStation, Xbox, that again tips me back to Xbox. I mean, I've got Game Pass for PC, so it's not, for me, that's not a big leap to then go to an Xbox, because I've already seen a lot of the titles, and it's like, oh, I can play this on the Xbox, I can play it on PC. So yeah, it's interesting. What did you think of the launch titles for PlayStation? Being a PlayStation guy, I don't think you're going to buy one. I'm getting the vibes that you're not.
The only one I can think of is Bugsnax, just because the song's so catchy. I listened to it yesterday. And honestly, none of them.
Sing it for us.
No, none of them were kind of like big ones that were like, wow, I need it on release. Like, they aren't a Super Mario 64. They aren't. Come back to me, but they weren't ones that like, holy moly, I need this system on release day. So thank you, Adam. Miles Morales and Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls is just a re-release, so Miles Morales is kind of the new one there. But I've heard great things about the first Spider-Man, so that one could have been one, but it's just one new game I've not played before isn't enough to move it for me.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what makes the exclusivity, whether it's worth it or not? Like, is Sony putting? I mean, Sony owns the Spider-Man IP, so that kind of makes sense. But we're saying that we think now that Microsoft, has Bethesda, who have the Lucasfilm IP, we don't think that will be exclusive. It's do those exclusive titles? Is buying them exclusively, does that move the needle for enough people to buy that console? And it will remain to be seen. I don't think it's everything. I don't think when we look at the sales in the future and be like, okay, if PlayStation massively outsold Xbox, I don't think you can go, oh, it's because the exclusive titles were better. I don't, it's a factor, but it's not the be all and end all. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I feel like Xbox didn't. They kind of Halo was their big one. It's always been their exclusive game, and obviously that was delayed from the launch. So they were kind of felt backwards. It kind of feels like Sony are more on the exclusive side than Microsoft. Again, that might just be a perception. So it will be interesting to see which model wins and whether that has any impact going forward, as if we see more exclusive deals come through or we see less exclusive deals and it's more open play. So
one thing we haven't touched on is like merchants having exclusive things in games. Like, I can't remember examples off the top of my head because it's been a while since I've seen one, but it used to be if you bought your games at Target, for example, you would get in-game items that other people who bought it at, say, Walmart wouldn't get.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not something I've actually ever really come across. I wonder whether that's going to be.
I think Game Gear quite often gets kind of exclusive. Like if you buy from Game, you'll get like an extra gun in Battlefield or something like that.
That is interesting. Yeah, I guess that's a fourth player in the game.
Yeah.
It's the merchants themselves. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's just me. I've never really seen much of that, so I don't know how big of a factor that is. But that is definitely an interesting one, and I guess it's going to make life easier with as we move to a more digital world. There's less discs. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So we'll see what happens there. So
yeah.
that was kind of everything I had. So unless there's anything else that you want to talk about on exclusivity,
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So thank you everyone so much for watching. We will catch you next time on Thursday, the 21st at 4 p.m. But until next time, there you go. I'll do it as well.
Yeah.
Cool. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.